Lone Cheyenne chief rides through the plains when he sees something no man of honor can ignore. What he does next will change two destinies forever. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The harsh winter winds swept across the Wyoming plains as Chief Soaring Eagle guided his horse through the tall grass. His weathered face, marked with the lines of 40 harsh winters, remained stoic despite the biting cold. The Cheyenne leader had been hunting for 2 days, providing for his small band, who had separated from the main tribe after disagreements about whether to settle on the reservation. They had chosen to maintain their nomadic ways, following the diminishing buffalo herds rather than accept the white man's offer of a confined life. The spirits of our ancestors would not have us abandon our ways, Soaring Eagle muttered to himself, scanning the horizon. The endless sky stretched above him like a great blue blanket, offering no warmth but abundant beauty. His small hunting party had split up at dawn, agreeing to meet back at their hidden camp by nightfall. The sound of horses approaching made him instantly alert. Quickly he directed his mount into a dense thicket of trees and brush, a rare feature on these plains. Dismounting silently, he crept forward, keeping low to the ground. Army patrols had been increasing in frequency, hunting for bands like his that refused to report to the agencies. What he saw through the branches made his blood run cold. 3 soldiers in blue uniforms were surrounding a covered wagon. A white woman, perhaps 30 years old with auburn hair that gleamed in the sunlight, stood defiantly before them. Her dress was simple but well made, suggesting she was not destitute. "Ma'am, this territory ain't safe for traveling alone," the tallest soldier said, his voice carrying on the wind. "Where's your husband at?" "I've told you, Sergeant Mills. My husband died of fever near Fort Laramie," the woman replied firmly. "I'm continuing on to my brother's homestead near Cheyenne." "That's mighty unfortunate," the sergeant said with a smile that contained no sympathy. "Dangerous country for a widow woman, especially one as pretty as yourself." The soldier to his right laughed. "Maybe we ought to escort you personally, ma'am, for your protection." Soaring Eagle watched as the woman backed toward her wagon. "No, thank you. I've managed this far. Please continue on your patrol." The third soldier, a stocky man with a thick beard, grabbed the woman's arm. "We insist, ma'am. Army regulations." "Let go of me," she demanded, attempting to pull away. The sergeant dismounted, approaching slowly. "We're just being gentlemen, offering a lady some company. No need to be unfriendly." What happened next confirmed Soaring Eagle's suspicions about their intentions. The sergeant struck the woman across the face when she continued to resist, sending her sprawling to the ground. The 3 soldiers laughed as she tried to scramble away. Soaring Eagle had seen enough. Though he knew intervening could bring death to his entire band if these men reported back, he could not stand by while such dishonor was displayed. Among his people, women were respected and valued. Such treatment would never be tolerated. He whistled softly, and his horse came to him. Quickly mounting, he pulled his rifle from its leather scabbard and burst from the thicket with a fierce war cry. The soldiers, caught completely off guard, fumbled for their weapons. Soaring Eagle fired once into the air, then trained his rifle on the sergeant. "You go now," he commanded in English he had learned during peace talks years before. "Leave woman alone. It's just one Indian," the bearded soldier said, drawing his pistol. "Let's kill him and be done with it." The woman, recovering from the shock of this sudden intervention, shouted, "Don't. There are likely more nearby. Just leave." Soaring Eagle appreciated her quick thinking. He kept his rifle steady, his face impassive. "Many braves in trees, many rifles. You go now." The sergeant, weighing his options and seemingly reluctant to risk his life, nodded slowly. "Fine, we'll go. But this ain't over, Redskin. We patrol these parts regular? We'll remember you." The 3 soldiers mounted their horses and rode off, throwing looks of hatred over their shoulders. Soaring Eagle watched them until they disappeared over a ridge, then turned his attention to the woman who was getting to her feet, her hand touching her reddened cheek. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadier than he would have expected. "You saved me from a terrible fate." Soaring Eagle nodded once. "Bad men, not all soldiers like that." "No, not all," she agreed. "My name is Sarah Bennett. I truly am traveling to my brother's homestead. My husband died 3 weeks ago. Her eyes filled with tears that she quickly blinked away. Not safe alone, Soaring Eagle stated. Those men come back. I know, Sarah admitted, looking down at the ground. But I have nowhere else to go. Everything I own is in this wagon. Soaring Eagle considered her situation. His people were in danger every day from soldiers and settlers who viewed them as obstacles to be eliminated. Yet this woman was also in danger, and she had done nothing to harm his people. After a long moment, he made a decision. My camp not far. You come, stay night. Tomorrow I take you toward Cheyenne. Safer that way. Sarah looked uncertain. Won't that be dangerous for you and your people? I've heard the army is hunting for Indians who aren't on reservations. Already in danger? Soaring Eagle replied simply. One white woman make no difference. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah nodded. Thank you. I accept your offer. As they traveled together toward his camp, Soaring Eagle found himself studying the woman. Unlike many whites he had encountered, she showed no fear of him, only gratitude. Perhaps, he thought, there were more whites like her than he had believed. But it would not change what was coming, the slow destruction of his people's way of life. For tonight, however, he would offer protection to someone who needed it, as had been the Cheyenne way since time immemorial. Sarah followed Soaring Eagle's lead, guiding her wagon carefully through terrain that seemed impossible to navigate. Her heart still raced from the encounter with the soldiers, though she had encountered unfriendly men before. Something about Sergeant Mills had chilled her to the bone. His eyes had been empty, devoid of compassion, like those of a predator. Had this Cheyenne warrior not intervened, she shuddered to think what might have happened. Not much farther, Soaring Eagle said, breaking the silence that had stretched between them. He rode slightly ahead, occasionally looking back to ensure she was managing the difficult route. Your English is very good, Sarah commented, hoping to learn more about her rescuer. Learned at peace talks many years ago. He paused, then added, before promises broken. Sarah nodded, understanding the pain behind those simple words. Her late husband, James, had been sympathetic to the plight of the native tribes. As a trader, he had dealt fairly with them, and often spoke against the government's policies of forced relocation. His views had made him unpopular with many settlers. My husband respected your people, she offered. He believed you had been treated unjustly. Soaring Eagle studied her face for a moment, as if searching for deceit. Finding none, he nodded. Your husband, wise man. They crested a small rise, and Sarah gasped at what she saw. Hidden in a natural depression ringed by trees and brush, was a small Cheyenne camp of about 15 teepees arranged in a circle. Children played near the center while women worked at various tasks. Several men stood guard at different points around the perimeter. As they approached, the activity in the camp ceased. All eyes turned toward them, expressions ranging from curiosity to alarm at the sight of a white woman entering their sanctuary. An older man with long gray braids stepped forward, speaking rapidly in Cheyenne. Soaring Eagle responded calmly, gesturing toward Sarah and then in the direction from which they had come. The older man's face remained stern, but he eventually nodded. This is Gray Wolf, our medicine man, Soaring Eagle explained to Sarah. I told him of soldiers. He says you may stay one night. Thank you, Sarah said, directing her words to the elderly man. I'm grateful for your hospitality. Gray Wolf regarded her silently for a moment before speaking to Soaring Eagle again and walking away. He says you are first white woman in our camp, Soaring Eagle translated. Says you bring change, not know if good or bad. Sarah felt the weight of many stares as she was led into the camp. A woman about her age approached, her face curious rather than hostile. My sister, Swift Deer, Soaring Eagle introduced them. She help you. Swift Deer smiled tentatively at Sarah. Come, she said in halting English, gesturing for Sarah to follow her to one of the teepees. Inside, Sarah was surprised by the comfort and organization of the dwelling. Buffalo robes covered the ground, and various belongings were neatly arranged around the perimeter. Swift Deer indicated that Sarah should sit, then offered her a wooden bowl containing some kind of stew. Eat, she encouraged. Good. Sarah accepted gratefully, realizing suddenly how hungry she was. The stew was rich and flavorful, containing meat and unfamiliar roots or vegetables. As she ate, Swift Deer examined her with open curiosity, occasionally touching Sarah's hair or the fabric of her dress. Outside, Sarah could hear voices raised in what sounded like an argument. She recognized Soaring Eagle's deep tones among them. "Problem?" she asked Swift Deer, pointing toward the voices. Swift Deer's expression grew serious. "Some not want white woman here. Say dangerous." Sarah nodded, understanding their concern. "They're right. Those soldiers might track me here. Brother say must help," Swift Deer replied simply. "Cheyenne way." When Sarah finished eating, Swift Deer led her back outside. The camp had resumed its normal activities, though many still cast curious glances in her direction. Children, less inhibited than their parents, approached to touch her skirts or hair before being called away. Soaring Eagle was deep in conversation with several men near the center of the camp. When he saw Sarah, he excused himself and approached. "Some want you leave now," he said frankly. "I say too dangerous. Soldiers still looking. You stay night. Leave early morning." "I understand their concerns," Sarah replied. "I don't wish to bring trouble to your people." Soaring Eagle studied her for a moment. "Why your brother in Cheyenne? Many settlers hate Indians." "My brother Thomas is different," Sarah explained. "He's a doctor who treats everyone, regardless of race. He's written me about treating native patients when others refused." This information seemed to interest Soaring Eagle. Good doctor valuable. Hard to find one who treat Indian people. As evening approached, the camp gathered around several small fires. Sarah sat beside Swift Deer, watching as an elderly woman began telling a story. Though she couldn't understand the words, the animated expressions and gestures conveyed much of the tale's meaning. "She tells story of how Cheyenne people came to be," Swift Deer explained in her limited English. "Very old story." Sarah listened, entranced by the rhythm of the unfamiliar language and the rapt attention of the listeners. For the first time since James's death, she felt a sense of peace. These people, despite having every reason to hate and fear whites, had offered her shelter and food when she needed it most. Later, as the fires burned low, Swift Deer prepared a sleeping place for Sarah in her teepee. Before retiring, Sarah stepped outside for a final breath of night air. She found Soaring Eagle standing alone, gazing at the stars. "Thank you again," she said softly, approaching him, "for everything." He turned to her, his face partially shadowed. "You different from other white women I meet." "How so?" "No fear, respect for our ways." He gestured toward the camp. "See us as people, not savages." "My husband taught me that all people deserve respect," Sarah replied. "He would have been grateful to you for helping me." Soaring Eagle nodded slowly. "Tomorrow I take you closer to Cheyenne. Too dangerous to go all way. Army patrols." "I understand. Any help you can provide is more than I could have hoped for." As Sarah turned to go back to the teepee, Soaring Eagle spoke again. "Your eyes sad. More than husband death." Surprised by his perception, Sarah paused. "Yes. James and I, we had no children. Now I have no family except my brother. I fear being alone." "Cheyenne understand family important," Soaring Eagle said. "No one should be alone." Their eyes met in the darkness, a moment of connection that transcended the vast differences in their lives and experiences. Then Sarah nodded goodnight and returned to the teepee, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but feeling for the first time in weeks that she might find her way through them. Dawn broke cold and clear over the Cheyenne camp. Sarah awoke to find Swift Deer already gone from the teepee, the sounds of the camp coming to life outside. She straightened her wrinkled dress as best she could and stepped out into the morning light, breathing in the crisp air that carried the scent of wood smoke and cooking food. Soaring Eagle approached, leading her horse which had been cared for overnight. "We leave soon," he said without preamble. "Scouts report soldiers camped 10 miles south. Moving this way." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "Sergeant Mills?" she asked. Soaring Eagle nodded grimly. 6 soldiers now, looking for something." His eyes met hers. "Or someone." "I've brought danger to your people," Sarah said, regret washing over her. "I'm so sorry." "Not your fault," Soaring Eagle replied firmly. "Soldiers always hunt us. You give reason, not cause." Around them, the camp was in controlled motion, women quickly packing essential items while men gathered weapons and prepared horses. Children were unusually quiet, sensing the tension in the air. "You're breaking camp?" Sarah asked, alarmed at the thought that the entire band would be displaced because of her. "Time to move anyway," Soaring Eagle explained. "Stay too long one place, leave tracks, signs. Army scouts find eventually." Grey Wolf approached them, speaking urgently to Soaring Eagle. The chief listened intently before responding with a nod. "Grey Wolf say you bring vision to him in night," Soaring Eagle translated. "Say you part of Cheyenne path now, cannot avoid." Before Sarah could ask what this meant, Swift Deer appeared with a bundle wrapped in leather. "Food for journey," she explained, handing it to Sarah. Then, unexpectedly, she embraced the white woman. "Be safe, sister." Sarah returned the embrace, touched by the gesture. "Thank you for your kindness." Within minutes, Sarah found herself seated in her wagon, with Soaring Eagle mounted beside her. To her surprise, 2 young Cheyenne men also appeared on horseback. "Red Hawk and Running Elk come with us," Soaring Eagle explained. "More eyes, better. Keep watch for soldiers." The small party set out as the camp continued its rapid dismantling behind them. Sarah glanced back once to see Swift Deer watching them go, her hand raised in farewell. They traveled swiftly but cautiously, following game trails and natural depressions in the land to stay hidden from distant observers. The 2 warriors ranged ahead and to the sides, occasionally reporting back to Soaring Eagle in hushed Cheyenne. "How far are we from Cheyenne?" Sarah asked during a brief stop to rest the horses. 2 days normal travel," Soaring Eagle replied. "But we take longer path. Avoid main trails where soldiers patrol." Sarah nodded, understanding the necessity. "And after you get me safely there, where will your people go?" Soaring Eagle's face remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Perhaps sadness, perhaps resignation. "North, maybe. Find other free bands. Some say Canada's safer for Indian people. Army not follow there." The thought of these people being driven from their ancestral lands struck Sarah deeply. "It's not right," she said quietly. "This is your home." "Was home," Soaring Eagle corrected her. "Now white man's land. Government papers say so." The bitterness in his voice was subtle, but unmistakable. They continued their journey through the afternoon, making good progress until Red Hawk returned at a gallop, his expression urgent. He spoke rapidly to Soaring Eagle, pointing toward a distant ridge. "Soldiers," Soaring Eagle translated for Sarah. "Coming this way, must hide." He quickly led them toward a stand of trees along a shallow creek bed. The trees were sparse but offered some concealment from distant eyes. "Stay in wagon," Soaring Eagle instructed Sarah. "Do not move." He and the 2 warriors positioned themselves at different points among the trees, rifles ready. The minutes stretched endlessly as they waited, the only sound the occasional snort of a horse or the whisper of wind through the branches. Then came the unmistakable sound of multiple horses approaching. Sarah peered cautiously through the wagon cover and saw 6 cavalry soldiers riding parallel to the creek, perhaps 200 yards away. Her breath caught when she recognized Sergeant Mills at the head of the patrol. The soldiers stopped, surveying the landscape. For a heart-stopping moment, Mills seemed to look directly toward their hiding place. Sarah shrank back, praying they wouldn't be discovered. After what seemed an eternity, the patrol continued on, moving away from them. Only when they had disappeared from sight did Soaring Eagle signal that it was safe to speak. "They hunt with purpose," he observed grimly. "Not regular patrol." "They're looking for me," Sarah said, the realization settling like a stone in her stomach. But why? Why would they care about one woman traveling alone? Soaring Eagle's gaze was penetrating. "What in wagon, Sarah Bennett? What you carry?" Startled by the question, Sarah hesitated. "Just my personal belongings. Clothes, some household items, books, nothing of value. Husband trader, yes? Maybe trade with Indians?" Understanding dawned on Sarah's face. "James's journal. He kept detailed records of all his dealings, including..." She trailed off, moving to the back of the wagon where a small trunk was secured. Opening it, she withdrew a leather-bound book. James documented every broken treaty he witnessed, every instance of soldiers cheating native people or traders who dealt with them. He was gathering evidence to present to authorities in Washington. She looked up at Soaring Eagle. He believed if people knew the truth, things might change. Soaring Eagle's expression remained skeptical. White man's government knows, chooses not to see. Perhaps, Sarah acknowledged. But James believed in justice, and if these soldiers know about his journal, they must fear what it contains. Red Hawk spoke urgently to Soaring Eagle, gesturing toward the direction the soldiers had gone. "We must move," Soaring Eagle translated. "Circle around, travel by night now." As they prepared to continue their journey, Sarah found herself studying Soaring Eagle's profile against the setting sun. This proud warrior was risking everything to help her, a stranger, a white woman, reach safety. The nobility of his actions moved her deeply. "Why do you help me?" she asked suddenly. "You could have left me to those soldiers yesterday, or sent me away from your camp. It would have been safer for your people." Soaring Eagle was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but firm. "Cheyenne way is to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to show courage when easier to show fear." He met her gaze directly. "Your husband stood for truth. Honor his memory by delivering it." Something unspoken passed between them in that moment, a connection that transcended the vast differences in their worlds. Sarah felt her heart quicken, and for the first time since James's death, she experienced an emotion that felt strangely like hope. As darkness fell, they resumed their journey, traveling under the cover of night through a landscape that seemed both beautiful and dangerous in the silver moonlight. Sarah knew that with each mile, they were risking their lives not just for her safety, but for a chance, however small, at justice. The early morning fog clung to the ground, providing additional cover, as Sarah's small party approached the outskirts of Cheyenne. They had traveled through the night, stopping only briefly to rest the horses, always alert for signs of pursuing soldiers. Now, as dawn broke, they paused on a low ridge overlooking the settlement. Cheyenne was larger than Sarah had expected, a growing town with wooden buildings lining proper streets, the newly constructed Union Pacific Railroad cutting through its center. Smoke rose from chimneys as the town awakened to another day of business and expansion. "Your brother's place, where?" Soaring Eagle asked, surveying the town with evident caution. Sarah withdrew a letter from her pocket. "His last correspondence said he lives at the north edge of town. He has a small house with a doctor's office attached." She scanned the distant buildings. "There, perhaps? That building with the white fence?" Soaring Eagle nodded. "I take you closer but cannot enter town. Not safe for Indian men." "I understand," Sarah replied, feeling a mix of relief at being near her destination and sadness at the imminent parting from her protectors. "You've risked enough already." They descended from the ridge, staying within the tree line that ran along a small stream leading toward town. As they drew closer, they could see people moving about on the streets, merchants opening their shops, workers heading to the railroad yard. Red Hawk, who had been scouting ahead, suddenly returned at a gallop. His urgent words to Soaring Eagle needed no translation. His expression conveyed the warning clearly. "Soldiers in town," Soaring Eagle confirmed grimly. "2 at North Road. Watching." Sarah's heart sank. "They're waiting for me. They must believe I'll try to reach my brother." Soaring Eagle was silent for a moment, his mind working through their limited options. "You know brother's house well?" "Inside?" "I've never been there," Sarah admitted. "He moved to Cheyenne after I married James, but his letters described a back door leading to a small garden where he grows medicinal plants." "Good." Soaring Eagle nodded. "We circle around. Come to town from west." Les watched. The new plan took them on a wide arc through rolling hills, carefully avoiding open spaces where they might be spotted from town. By mid-morning, they had positioned themselves in a copse of trees on the western edge of Cheyenne. "I go alone from here," Sarah said, preparing to take the reins. "You've done more than enough." Soaring Eagle shook his head firmly. "Too dangerous still. Soldiers watching all roads." He pointed to a narrow creek that ran behind a row of buildings. "Water path leads behind houses. We follow to your brother's place." Sarah wanted to object, to spare him further risk, but she knew he was right. Alone, she would be quickly captured. Reluctantly, she nodded. They left the wagon hidden among the trees, taking only essential belongings and James's precious journal, which Sarah tucked securely into her dress. On foot, the 4 of them followed the creek, staying low among the reeds and brush. The back of the town revealed a different character than its respectable front, garbage heaps, outhouses, and the occasional drunk sleeping off the previous night's excesses. They moved silently, freezing in place whenever a townsperson appeared in a back doorway or yard. When they reached the area where Sarah believed her brother's house to be, they paused, watching. A man in a dark coat emerged from the back door of a white-painted building, carrying a small basket. He moved methodically through a well-tended garden, picking leaves and flowers from various plants. "That's him," Sarah whispered, recognizing Thomas from family resemblances, despite the years of separation. "That's my brother." Soaring Eagle studied the man and the surrounding area carefully. No soldiers visible. Now good time. Sarah turned to her three protectors, emotion welling in her throat. "I don't know how to thank you. You've saved my life." "Journal must reach right hands," Soaring Eagle replied. "Man who speaks truth about Indian treatment. Your brother doctor who helps all people. Maybe start change." Sarah impulsively reached out, clasping Soaring Eagle's hand in both of hers. "I won't forget what you've done, what your people have suffered." Something shifted in Soaring Eagle's stoic expression, a softening around his eyes, a slight upturn of his lips. "Go now. Be safe, Sarah Bennett." With a final look at the three warriors who had risked everything to help her, Sarah slipped from their hiding place and hurried toward her brother's garden. "Thomas," she called softly as she approached. Her brother turned, eyes widening in shock and then joy. "Sarah? My God!" He rushed forward, embracing her tightly. "I received word about James. I've been sick with worry about you." "I'll explain everything," Sarah said urgently. "But first we need to get inside. There are soldiers looking for me." Thomas's expression turned serious. Without asking questions, he guided her quickly through the back door into his home. Once inside, Sarah moved immediately to a window, peering out toward where she had left Soaring Eagle and his companions. They were already melting back into the brush along the creek, disappearing like shadows. "Sarah, what's happened? Why would soldiers be looking for you?" Thomas asked, setting down his basket of herbs. Sarah withdrew James's journal from her dress. "Because of this. James documented years of fraud and mistreatment of Native peoples by military officers and government agents. Names, dates, details. It's all here. The men involved would face court-martial or worse if this information reached the right authorities." Thomas took the journal, quickly flipping through its pages. His expression grew increasingly grim. "This is extensive and damning." He looked up at his sister. "But how did you get here? The journey from Fort Laramie is dangerous, especially for a woman alone." "I wasn't alone," Sarah said, her thoughts returning to Soaring Eagle. She told Thomas everything: the encounter with Sergeant Mills and his men, Soaring Eagle's timely intervention, the night in the Cheyenne camp, and their dangerous journey to Cheyenne. Thomas listened in amazement. "These Cheyenne risked their lives for you? Knowing you were white? They have more honor than many who claim to be civilized," Sarah replied firmly. "They could have left me to my fate, but they chose compassion instead." A knock at the front door interrupted them. Thomas motioned for Sarah to stay out of sight while he answered. She heard the formal tones of a military man, asking if the doctor had seen a woman matching her description. Thomas's denial was convincing, and the soldier eventually departed. "They won't give up easily," Thomas said when he returned. "Not with what's at stake." "What can we do?" Sarah asked. Thomas thought for a moment. "I have a friend at the territorial governor's office, a man of integrity. If we can get this journal to him, he'll know what to do with it. Who can be trusted in Washington?" Over the next 2 days, Sarah remained hidden in Thomas's home while he made arrangements. The soldiers maintained their watch, but their attention was focused on the roads and main streets, not the backdoor routes Thomas used to contact his allies. On the third morning, Thomas returned from an errand with news. "It's done. The journal is on its way to Washington in diplomatic pouch. They can't intercept it, and there's more. A federal marshal is arriving tomorrow with orders to arrest Sergeant Mills and 2 other officers named in the journal. Their superiors in Washington apparently had no idea what they've been doing out here." Relief washed over Sarah. "So it's over? James's work wasn't in vain?" "Not in vain at all," Thomas assured her. "But Sarah, there's something else. While I was in town, I heard rumors about Army patrols engaging with hostile Indians north of here. I fear your Cheyenne friends may be in danger. Sarah's heart clenched with sudden dread. We have to warn them. They saved my life. I can't let them ride into a trap. Thomas looked uncertain. It would be dangerous. The army's still looking for you. Not for much longer, according to you, Sarah countered. Once the marshal arrives, Mills will be arrested. We just need to delay any action against Soaring Eagle's band until then. After much discussion, Thomas agreed to help. He had treated several local hunters and guides who knew the territory well. One of them, a weathered man named Jenkins who had a Shoshone wife, agreed to carry a warning message to any Cheyenne bands he encountered. The next day brought the promised federal marshal, along with the satisfying sight of Sergeant Mills being led away in handcuffs, his face contorted with rage when he glimpsed Sarah watching from Thomas's window. The other soldiers involved were also arrested, their careers over, their crimes exposed. A week passed with no word from Jenkins. Sarah tried to settle into life in Cheyenne, helping Thomas in his practice, but her thoughts constantly returned to Soaring Eagle and his people. Had the warning reached them? Were they safe? Then, on a cool autumn evening as Sarah tended Thomas's medicinal garden, a shadow moved at the edge of the property. Her heart leapt when she recognized Soaring Eagle's tall figure, partially concealed by the growing darkness. "You came back," she whispered, moving to meet him. "It's dangerous for you here. Heard soldiers who hunted you arrested," he replied. "Your husband's words reached important ears?" "Yes," Sarah confirmed, "and more may come of it. There are investigations beginning, questions being asked about the treatment of native peoples." Soaring Eagle's expression remained guarded. "Words on paper not stop what coming. Too many white people want Indian land." "I know," Sarah acknowledged sadly, "but it's a beginning, a small push toward justice." They stood in silence for a moment, the distance between their worlds simultaneously vast and insignificant. "My brother has offered to help your people," Sarah said finally. "Medical supplies, food for winter. He has friends who feel as he does." "Why would he help?" Soaring Eagle asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Because it's right," Sarah replied simply, "and because you helped his sister when she needed it most." Soaring Eagle considered this. Winter coming. Hard times ahead. Help welcome. He paused, then added, "I return in one moon, bring furs to trade. Fair exchange, not charity." Sarah understood his pride. "Of course, my brother will arrange it." As Soaring Eagle turned to leave, Sarah called after him softly, "Will I see you again?" He looked back, and in the fading light she saw something in his eyes that mirrored the feelings growing in her own heart. Paths crossed for reason. We'll cross again. In the months that followed, Soaring Eagle returned regularly to trade with Thomas, bringing news of his band, which had found relative safety in a remote valley. Each visit lengthened, the conversations between him and Sarah growing deeper. Thomas observed their developing relationship with quiet support, recognizing the healing it brought to his sister's wounded heart. By spring, when the plains erupted in wildflowers, Sarah made her decision. She would join Soaring Eagle's people, bringing her skills as a healer and teacher, building a bridge between two worlds that desperately needed understanding. It would not be an easy life, but it would be one with purpose and love. As she packed her belongings into the same wagon that had brought her to Cheyenne, Thomas embraced her. "Are you certain this is what you want, sister?" Sarah looked beyond him to where Soaring Eagle waited, proud and patient. "More certain than I've ever been. This is where my path leads." Together, they rode north toward the mountains, toward a future neither could have imagined when their lives first intersected on the Wyoming plains. Behind them, the town of Cheyenne grew smaller in the distance, a symbol of one world. Ahead lay another, where ancient traditions and new beginnings might somehow find harmony, at least for those brave enough to seek it.